Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the Move podcast, talking about the recently announced, that was just yesterday, the 2023 Tour de France. Of course, this show will be followed up by also the announcement of the Tour de France THEMOVE Zwift, which also was announced. I am joined by, over there in Madrid, Johan Bruniel. He's got his backdrop back. Good morning, Johan. Or good afternoon, I should say.
Good afternoon.
Down there in ATX, JB Hager, hopefully recovering from Formula One weekend.
I wasn't here. I was
that's true. Yeah, well, let me say it was a different kind of it was a different kind of pit stop. JB had about 82 flat tires in the Airstream on the way home.
I did get to my stop in Alabama just in time to turn on the F1 race.
And also joined by up till 2 a.m. with Luke Bryan drinking an excessive amount of bourbon, Mr. George Hincapie.
Good morning, everybody.
How was the show last night?
The show was amazing. We got thank you for setting that up. We did a really fun bike ride, which I tried to FaceTime you up going up Paris Mountain, and like always, you screened me. You didn't answer, but we had a great time. He loved the riding here. It was a really fun day.
I know you're not going to like to hear this, but some people actually work. Okay, they're not the people. A lot of people work. And not everybody gets to be out having fun bike rides in the sunshine with big country and western stars and stars that are on TV and shit like that, right? Some of us I sit right here. Okay, I grind for you and all of our other LPs at Next Ventures, and I just cannot always pick up FaceTimes. I know it's cute. I love seeing them.
At least you texted me. You actually like showed a little bit of like care. You said, "Did you call me?" ?
You know what you always say.
I respond. I go, "Yes, I'm with Luke Bryan trying to FaceTime you." And what happens? No response. Well, he goes dark on me,
as you like to say.
Most people be like, "Oh, call me back. Let me say hi." Nope, Lance, no response.
I can talk to Luke anytime. I've talked to him many times, but as you very well know, George, it's all about the paper. Okay, we making paper. All right. Speaking of paper, today's show brought to you by Zwift. As I got up 2 mornings ago, it had snowed 9 inches already here in Aspen. I looked outside. I was like, oh fuck, here we go. But I got a solution. I got the pain cave in full effect. I've been Zwifting my ass off. We got We Do Wednesdays. We got Suffer Sundays, which I plan on attending this morning. Over 15,000 of you have joined We Do on a Zwift ride, either We Do Wednesday or Suffer Sunday. 530,000 miles ridden last year. I tell you, I am a full-on convert. By the way, those rides, these are not rides, except unless you're George, you go out there and hammer with like 2 or 3 other people. Most of y'all hang back with me, the old man. I love getting in my old man group. 78% of us have finished We Do Wednesday. Zwift makes indoor training fun. Visit Zwift.com for a free trial to find out more. Today's show also brought to you by True Classic. I'm rocking the True Classic tee. It is unlike most tees. All right, we're talking to you dudes. I know we have a lot of ladies listening, but your wives might appreciate you rocking a True Classic tee where you can, just fits just right. You get the pecs, you get the buys. It hangs just right. You're walking around with your jeans or shorts. It is my favorite tee. They've helped over 2 million men get their fit on at an affordable price. Our listeners get access to the absolute best deal they offer for a limited time only. Get 25% off with the code THEMOVE. And that's over there at trueclassic.com. By the way, they don't just make t-shirts. They make all kinds of other stuff too. So get your push-ups on, boys. Get your True Classic tee on. Start looking yoked like George. All right, let's talk about this route. I was, of course, they announce it when we're all basically asleep over here, but it's always a mystery, right? Let's just, for the most part, there are some sites and some sleuths that go out there and sort of figure out, and by the way, how the fuck these people figure out where the tour is going just by, how many hotels do you have to call to figure out a day or two in advance where the tour is going? But people do it. Nonetheless,
like you just said right before the start of the show, it's all about the what? It's all about the paper.
Oh, about that paper.
Putting up that paper to get the Tour de France to start in their towns.
So wait, are people calling around to see what hotels are booked up?
No, there's actually one site which is amazing. It's a Dutch guy, and every year he gets it 95% right without seeing. There's basically only on hotel reservations and local newspapers. And I mean, it's impressive. I mean, it must be a full-time job. I don't know.
I was just going to say, this guy does not have a job. You imagine, I better wake up early, start calling some random fucking hotel. Just visually, if you just look at the map, of course, the map is behind Johan if you're watching us on YouTube. And I think we spent years sort of, people want to know, do we like this course? Do we not like this course? I'm sort of over that, right? It doesn't matter. And it's not dissimilar to what we said when we raced. It's not up to us. It is their race, right? They have a whole technical committee. They have, as to your point, George, they probably have some financial incentives to go certain places. And what I would always say when we were racing, I say, listen, they said, what do you want in the course? Or what do you think of the course? I said, listen, if they have fucking 20 criteriums around Paris, we're going to have to figure out a way to win. It's their race. They get to pick whatever they want to pick. Obviously, this one, just on the surface, looks really unique. You have a very, I think, a super interesting start in the Basque Country, which I want to get into just that region and some of the political stuff there, but also just the real beauty of it. But if you just look at it, I mean, this is a Tour de Central France. Like, it leaves the Basque Country and cuts right across central France, heads to the Alps.
Diagonal. It's a diagonal through France, basically.
Yeah. Go on. Give us, just before we get too technical or start getting, in some of the high points, what just overall your impression?
Well, the same as you, Lance. When I see the map, I say, what the hell is this? And then you find out there's only one time trial, only 22 kilometers. I would have expected at least a team time trial to compensate. So that's not there. But then really, if you look into detail, into the stages, it's a very, very hard Tour de France.
Right.
It's for climbers, no discussion. If you look at the vertical meters, 56,000 meters of climbing this year compared to, next year compared to this year's Tour de France, 48,000 meters. So that's 8,000 meters of difference. I mean, that's two big mountain stages, 8,000 meters.
That overall, that's 15. And keep in mind, folks were talking about how hard it was last year. Mm-hmm. We're talking 15 to 20% more vertical climbing.
Yeah.
Not only that,
so it is very hard. I think what's really special about this Tour de France is that there's not one single stage that you can pinpoint and say, okay, this is the crucial stage. It's going to be there's a lot going on. There's also a lot of non-mountain stages that are really hard. So I think it's going to be a very aggressive race. You have to be good from the start. The favorites have to be really on top of their game from the very beginning. Stage one is already super hard.
I want to spend a little more time on that. But before we do, George, give me your overall thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, like you were saying, a beautiful part of the world starting in the Basque region. Not only that, but the team presentation is at the Guggenheim Museum, which we all know is one of the prettiest buildings in the entire world. You being an art aficionado, you know it quite well. It's one of the few places that I actually took the time to go visit when I was racing. Very little places that we actually are able to go visit. We're in some of the most beautiful cities of Europe and we never get time to enjoy, but I went to, made a day out of going to the Guggenheim. Team presentation there. First stage, like you said, Johan, over 10,000 feet of climbing. We all know what the roads are like at the Pays Basque region. Second stage, climb up the Yaskabel, which, it's not the hardest climb in the world by any means. It's about 5 kilometers at like 6-7%, but very technical. There's going to be a huge battle for position going up to that. But once you get to the top, which I'm guessing will be 30, 40 guys, maybe 50, that descent is one of the most dangerous descents in cycling. It's like the Poggio in Milan-San Remo, which I know from personal experience following the old man over here. I crashed at 40 miles an hour underneath a guardrail and almost broke my leg in half. It's a crazy descent. It's going to be so exciting to watch. The riders know it. So the tension climbing that mountain is going to be at a level 10.
And the spectators, George.
The spectators.
The best crowd in the world in the Basque Country. So
listen, we know
it's going to be quite a show. Yeah. It's going to be quite a show that start.
Absolutely. And then stage 3, we go to a sprint
hold
stage.
on, not George. I just want to double click on the Heiskebel because you brought it up. Okay. And I don't know what year that was. You can remind me or not. But we had George as our favorite for Classica San Sebastian. And I really loved those days where I could serve as a domestique and have my own hotel and fancy friends and all that stuff later in life. But so G was,
and you remember them quite well, because it was probably like 2 or 3 days of those in your entire life that you had to do that.
I can count them on one hand for sure. But we're working for George, and we get to the top. I said, G, and I'm not, look, I could descend when I had to. I said, just stick on my wheel. And I fucking went Mach 10 down the high ski. I turned around and G was gone. And little did I know, he was like literally wrapped around a guardrail, which isn't funny. But that
was so nice of you to actually stop and check on me. Oh no, you didn't actually. You kept going. But that was
my radio was breaking up.
Crashes.
You guys have talked.
I was not your director. No, there.
I think Dirk was there with us.
Was it?
I got messed up. Yep. I went straight to the hospital, and it hit the leg pretty damn hard.
You guys have talked in the past how you don't like when there's not at least a prologue, like rolling out stage one, throw on top of it Basque Country, the craziness that Johan just mentioned, jitters. Like it's a tough way to start the tour, right?
Well, yes and no. I do love a good prologue, just because it does establish some pecking order in the peloton. You get to see where your form is and where everybody else's form is, et cetera. Having said that, I think these first 2 stages, and by the way, who knows what the weather, and the Basque Country is notorious for bad weather, even in the summer.
Yeah. And
the roads are small. They're very technical. This is, this is going to establish a pecking order right away. Day 1, 10,000 feet of climbing. Day 2, the high ski bell. Not many days later, you have the Pyrenees. Boys, you better show up with your pencils sharpened, because this is not a tour where you say, okay, we'll ride in, and then, golly gee, second week, we're going to make our move. No, they better show up day 1.
Absolutely right. But arguably, it being so technical and so difficult, the first 2 stages, perhaps we won't see these massive crashes, because there's going to be a lot more selection than the typical sprint stages in the first week of the Tour de France. So I'm thinking, since the roads are so small, the battle for position is going to be so high, there's going to be more selection. The finishes are going to be less riders, which in theory will make it a safer start of the Tour de France, we hope.
And going back to the descent of the high ski bell, on a serious note, Cav shed, and you had read some headlines about this, so it's no secret, but he spoke a lot about how much the peloton now, with cycling computers and how good the screen is, how good the mapping is. When these guys hit technical descents, right? When you did the high ski bell, I mean, you'd done it a few times, you knew it more or less. They widen the screen. They zoom in as much as they can on the screen for the downhill. And this is not just true for the high ski bell. This will be true for any technical downhill. And they are just looking at that screen. They know when it is a sharp right hand, a sharp left hand, a soft bender, it's all right there. So it's, and they are right. And, to what he told us, with that, they're racing. Like, there's no like sit up and let's just recover on the downhill. No, they're racing 100% of the time.
Well, that's completely different than back in our day. It's kind of like a rally car race now. You have a director driving the car, and then another director in the passenger seat, given, like you said, the instructions of the exact corners, what's coming up. You really can't even have guests in the team cars anymore, because it's all the technical staff feeding the information to the riders.
Need bigger cars.
That's true. That's true.
Johan, before we leave,
you have to hope there's no delay on the screen then, if you give rally-like instructions.
That's exactly right.
Before we move on from talking about those first really difficult days, I do want to ask about the Basque Country, Johan, and you, of course, live in Spain. And look, before I say anything, I love the Basque Country. I love the Basque people. I think they are the single biggest, most passionate group of fan base, that we have in cycling. We all remember our days. Of course, they had a team that was highly competitive. They would travel for an entire month and follow the team. They were rabid. But the Basque Country is not without political issues over the years. And so much so that for, I don't know, probably 20 years, even their very own Tour of Spain would not go to the Basque Country, right? You have the separatist groups. I'm not trying to predict or preview anything here, but it was a big enough concern that their very own Tour of Spain would not go there because of potential violence.
More so the Tour of Spain actually than the other races, because there's this thing with Basque Country wanted to be independent, still wants to be independent, but I think the terrorist movement is done there, it's dead, and it's definitely not an issue. If I think now speaking of it, the Tour de France in 1992 started in San Sebastian,
right?
So it was more it was more of a Spanish issue. And I think about 10 years ago, probably, the Tour of Spain went back to the Basque Country for the first time in a very long time.
Good.
And correct me if I'm wrong, separatist or not, the Basques love cycling. That is the one common thing that they all love.
Oh, yeah.
Political issues or not, I mean, they will get behind cycling 1,000%.
George, it's like everything, the political controversy, it's a minority. The majority of the Basques are just really, really good people, and above all, they all love cycling. So getting any bike race in the Basque Country will never be an issue. On the contrary, I mean, it's a party for them.
And for anybody that plans on going to the start of the tour, of course, here in the Basque Country, the cuisine is, I mean, obviously food all over Europe is great, but the food in the Basque Country is so next level.
Yeah.
I'm just throwing that out there. Send us pictures.
Hey, big picture. You talk about all the climbing and how difficult this is. Do you think in looking at recent Tour de France's post Sky domination, what makes it exciting is if somebody cracks? Did Roglic crack? Did Pogačar have a bit crack and have a bad day like we saw this past year? Do you think that's the mindset of the design? Let's make more difficult climbing finishes so someone might crack. That does make for a more animated race.
I mean, Tadej Pogačar hopefully learned his lesson. I mean, if you have a race that is even more dynamic, he just has to wait for those moments where he knows he can get or make a selection, get a time gap. I mean, don't get sucked into a race that's actually even harder, even more explosive, even more dynamic, and try to, wait, save yourself, find those moments, look around, see when people are hurting, and then go. Don't. This is not a tour where, and of course, the road will dictate all this, and we'll all watch it next July. But this is not one where you can play around, guys. And having said all that, I think he probably did learn his lesson.
I think so. For sure. I think so too. And the team, I mean, actually both teams, both UAE and Jumbo-Visma got stronger again, with certain new riders. And I think we have to factor in also for next year, how is Egan Bernal? How has he recovered from his accident, and how will he show up? I mean, he will definitely focus on the Tour de France. He already said that. I think it's for the benefit of the race, I mean, to not just have this Jumbo-Visma UAE battle. I mean, I think we need Ineos in there. And with Bernal on top of his game, I think it's going to be very interesting with that much climbing.
Well, no, and he's not the only guy we're wondering if they even show up to the start line. You've got Tom Pidcock, who I read in the press, is deciding. I didn't realize he was having knee troubles already ahead of the cyclocross season. And then, of course, you have Remco Evenepoel, who by all indication is going to skip the tour and going to do the Tour of Italy.
I think so. I think it's very unlikely that Remco Evenepoel is going to go to the Tour de France. The Giro, I mean, independently, whether there's not a lot of time trialing in this tour, I think the next step for Remco would be the Giro, in my opinion. But now with so much time trialing in the Giro and almost no time trialing in the Tour, and on top of that, we know historically that the Tour of Italy is willing to make a huge financial effort to get certain stars at the starting line, which the Tour de France will never do. I think it's safe to say.
I don't know, Johan. I'm thinking it's a Lefebvre tactic, what he's done in the past. Keep the pressure off Remco. I mean, he is a superstar. If they start talking about Tour de France now, it's going to be in the papers every day, what he's doing, where he's going. Of course, the Giro is a massive race as well, but it's nothing like the Tour de France. I think, personally, he's trying to just, lay low, keep as much pressure off him as possible. And then we probably see it like a month before the tour. Okay, I'm going to go.
He's not going to go to the Tour, George.
No, I'm with Johan.
Don't you also think Quick Step needs an extra season or two to reinvent that team to support Remco, right? Yeah. They're not quite there.
Oh, and listen, I mean, if Remco Evenepoel would go to the Tour de France, you don't necessarily need a super strong team like Jumbo-Visma, because he would not be the top favorite. You know, it would still be Vingegaard and Pogačar. So, you know, if you go with two or three guys around you, it's possible. But Lefevre knows that he needs to build his team for 2024. And plus, I am 100% convinced that the Giro is going to make it financially impossible to say no for Remco, and quick step to not go to the Giro.
Question for you, Johan.
You're talking about paper. You're talking about paper.
Paper.
You
Question for you.
I do.
Remco's shape in the Vuelta and the Worlds. Is he staying with Vingegaard and Pogačar in the climbs at that level? Is he riding away from them?
I mean, no, he can stay with them. But if there's time trial, I mean, he can stay with them. Will he ride away from them? That's another question. You know, but if there's time trials, he will take time on them, because he is a better time trialist than both of them.
Okay, so we have not. Of course, these guys are incredibly strong, best climbers in the world, but we haven't seen them actually ride away from the best riders in the world on flat roads like Remco has done this year. When you know he's going, I mean, the amount of dominance he showed is unlike anything we've ever seen. So, in my opinion, I think it's a possibility he'll be at the Tour de France.
Okay, we'll talk in the beginning of July, George.
Okay, exactly. Well, or even late June, we might find out. And then, you know, the other thing that stands out to me is that and this part I do take issue with, and I'm with you on the team time trial, Johan. We always talk about that. We love that event. We think the people love that event. Nonetheless, it's not there. The thing that stood out is there are no iconic climbs in this tour, right? Let me rephrase that. There are no iconic finishes. And I'm talking about Tourmalet. I'm talking about Alpe d'Huez. I'm talking about Mont Ventoux. I'm talking about the places that people that are the monuments of the climbs in France. They're just not there. I mean, Puy de Dôme, lots of history, hadn't been there in 30 plus years. We can talk about that. I think that ties into a fun story we had last July. Based on who the last winner was on the top of Puy de Dôme, but it's lacking the monuments.
I agree.
We got Juplin, we got the Tourmalet. Of course, we're not finishing.
Those are second category. Those are not monuments.
Oof, I don't know about second category.
They're not second category. No, hang on. They're not second category climbs. They just don't hold the allure of the Alpe d'Huezes and the Ventouxs and the Tourmalets, et cetera, et cetera.
No.
Yeah, for a spectator too, if you're going, like if it's your once in a lifetime go to the Tour de France, you want to be on one of those.
But I have to say though, for the spectators, you know, if you look at the Alps, I mean, stage 13, 14, 15, 16, and 17 are in the Alps. I mean, if you want to have a good week of watching bike races, logistically there, you can see a lot. You can, you know, it's all really close together.
Yeah, and they continue to kick the riders in the teeth. Like we said, we start with over 10,000 feet of climbing on the first stage. Second to last stage, it's got, I don't know, 5 or 6 mid-mountain climbs. It's like they're calling, the technical director is calling it a mini Liège, Bastogne Liège. So
no, it's George, it's a lot harder than that. I mean, it's
exactly, but
exactly the same stage. It's exactly the same stage that when Annemiek van Vleuten won the last stage in the Tour de France Femmes. It's hard. It's super hard. And it's 133 kilometers. So they really kept that stage on, but they designed it to like somebody can, you know, give it all, like all or nothing, you know, attack and really blow the race apart on the second last stage.
Well, before we talk about, cause we can't just talk about the overall and the climbs and the climbers. I want to spend a little time talking because we do have, a massive story brewing with Mark Cavendish, as we have discussed. I think that's gotten a little more complicated, which we'll get into. Before we do, today's show also brought to you by HVMN. We talk about it all the time on the show. We know that ketone and ketone IQ is actively being used in this peloton. And we have, as a crew over here at The Move, have incorporated it into our daily lives, you know, whether it's mental clarity, focus, human performance. It is proven to actually work. It is a whole separate fuel source. Think about that. And also not just in the peloton, not just here at The Move, but we know the special forces are active users of ketone IQ. HVMN has completely changed the game. They brought the cost down. They made the test taste better, and they've made it more effective. By the way, a $6 million contract with the U.S. Special Forces. Head on over to hvmn.com. Use the promo code THEMOVE20. That's for 20% off. Again, that's hvmn.com. And the promo code is THEMOVE20. Today's show, last one of the day, also brought to you by Dung 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 ice barrel. Dung 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 ice barrel. George, have you?
Now I know why you got. Now I understand why you got the Evenepoel so perfect, because you were getting ready for the vanilla ice.
Oh man, I got the Robbie Van
dance.
Winkle poof going, man. I got the white.
Done the dance. You should have done the dance with that.
Exactly.
That would have been.
I'll tell you what. I to my friends at Ice Barrel, I think we need to do a deal with Vanilla Ice.
You
I'm
probably
serious.
used to cruise Old Forest Lane.
Old Forest Lane. We had dueling IROC Z's, and his name was Robbie Van Winkle, and he had his like eyebrows shaved, like lines in them.
He was a Mustang guy. That's why he references the 5.0.
Oh, rolling.
There-
5.0 with the rack top down so my hair can't blow.
There's your Halloween costume this weekend. If you were looking for an idea,
We're taking the kids to Post Malone Sunday. We're debating on whether or not we dress. You're not the only one with fancy friends, George. Anyways, the Ice Barrel is, look, cold exposure, cold baths. We know what they mean. We know what they do. I mean, you've seen all the guys out there, whether it's Wim Hof, all of our other friends out there on the cutting edge. Exposure to cold is a game changer. And I keep seeing this stuff pop up on Instagram, and I'm jealous of these people that can get in there. And I mean, there are people that could spend 30 minutes in there, right? But it's a game changer. I'm just telling you, you want to wake up, you want to feel recovered, you want to feel refreshed, jump in your Ice Barrel. And it's George, you're going to head down to the gas station after this. And what did you say? 200 pounds of ice you're buying?
No, I was exaggerating, because you made fun of my small amount of ice that I had in last time, but I'm 100% hitting that today after the show. I need a little revival.
You and Luke Bryan should get in there together.
He's a big boy. I don't know if we'd fit in that thing together.
Dear Ice Barrel, make a double size so we can get a picture of Luke Bryan and George Hincapie in there together. Listen, I've been working with these folks. We got the price down. We're cutting $125 off for you guys, so you can check it out. Head on over to Ice Barrel, and that's got 2 R's in it, by the way. icebarrel.com/TheMove. Use the code THEMOVE to get $125 off. Again, that's icebarrel.com/TheMove. Get colder, feel better, and let us know what you think. All right. Before we wrap, this of course got a huge story brewing with Cavendish. I've been following this leading up to. I thought it was Johan. You probably have more intel, but I thought it was peculiar that the team that he is allegedly going to canceled a major press conference where they were going to announce the team, quote unquote, which everybody believes to include Mark Cavendish. I don't like that. I don't know what's up with that.
That's not good news. I mean, what I do know is that. So the team B&B Hotels, B&B stays on as a sponsor. Now, the idea was that B&B would be the secondary sponsor, and there would be new money from Paris, from the community of Paris. And that's apparently not the case yet. So it doesn't, I mean, in my opinion, it doesn't look good. If you have to cancel 2 times now, the press conference where you're supposed to announce, and all these riders, Cavendish, but there's also Kees Bol, there's also Sinkeldam. Those guys are actually on board for Cavendish. I've heard that they haven't signed actual contracts; they only signed letters of intent. So, I hope for Cav, first of all, that because that team is for sure going to the Tour on a wild card. And, he just needs to get that 35th stage win,
And he, of course, was at the presentation yesterday. He thinks to his eye, he thinks there's 7 or 8 chances for sprinters. So that, obviously gives him 7 or 8 chances. Look, y'all know, I go back and forth on this thing. It's too big a story, right? And he deserves it. So I hope that whatever the issues are, and whether it's funding or just the composition of the team, I hope it gets sorted and we see him on the start line.
or find another team.
Or find another team. I mean, I'm shocked at the fact. I would have thought there would be at least 5 teams lined up.
Yeah,
with the budget.
I can't even get my brain around the value of the press that the team that signs Cavendish will get.
For example, and they're not specifically known to make smart decisions, right? But this would be a really smart decision. Israel. They're out of the first league. Sign Cavendish and 2 or 3 lead-out guys.
You think they get a wild card to the tour
with Cavendish? I think so.
100%.
I think so. There's no doubt. Wants to have this record broken too.
Maybe if they do that, Cav should take Chris Froome's place.
I don't think it's happening, guys. Let's just say from insider information, unfortunately, I don't think that's happening. But it's a shame if he does not get a contract. But he's a personality like you, Lance, that reaches beyond our sport of cycling. He's a value to any team out there. The confidence that he has in himself right now at this point in his career, he basically assures us that he will win and break the record of the Tour de France. Mm-hmm. I don't understand how he doesn't have teams lined up to sign him.
I don't either. I'm with you.
You guys have said recently that the sprinters of this era are good climbers too. They aren't as threatened to not get through the climbs, not make the time cut. What does it look like for this? This is a pretty difficult tour for a sprinter to get over some of these climbs.
They don't have a choice. I was shocked at how well, and we were old and we suck and we're slow. I was shocked at how Cav not only was hammering on the climbs when we were there with the group. But he looked a lot different. I think they've just had to, they know now that if you don't, whether it's losing weight, whether it's spending time climbing specific intervals, the time cut's the time cut. That's not, they're not going to eliminate that.
He was saying, just to be in the gruppetto now, you have to have at least 5.5 watts per kilo to hang on the climbs in the gruppetto. It's not like back in our day where you hit the gruppetto and just kind of chill. You're like, these guys are full gas in the gruppetto, so trying to keep in that group.
So remember last year when I challenged you, George, I asked you if you thought we could, if they let us, of course they're not.
No, we're not making it.
Could we finish the Tour de France? And you were like, I don't know. And I was like, you fucking crazy.
Meaning make the time cuts.
Meaning just finish. Make the time cuts, stay on the race, make it to Paris. If that is truly the case, I'm changing my vote. I'm out. I'm going to stay in Aspen and cover the race. Oh, Lord. What else? Anything else stick out before we jump? I think we covered a lot.
Not really. I'll throw in one thing. I would like personally, I think we talked about it years ago. This should be the year that the whole the whole caravan is electric vehicles. If you watch any sports, every commercial is a brand debuting their new electric. This is the time for the Tour to go all electric. It's just a tangent, and I'm obsessed.
The Tour de France cars are electric already. All of the Tour de France vehicles are electric. The teams are not. But I guess that depends on what kind of sponsorship they get, and then you cannot just ride the Tour de France with any model. You need a lot of space in the car. So
and a lot of range as well, because not only do you have to do the 150 mile or 130 mile stage, you got to get to the stage, and then you got to get to the hotel after the stage. So think about the range you need on all those cars.
Yeah, good point. In time, JB. In time.
I'm obsessed with electric.
After this show, just go back in the backyard and start hugging on that tree. It'll happen. All right. On that note, we'll wrap it up. This look. I think I'll just summarize and y'all jump in too if you want. But this is despite being, I think, really peculiar, this route. I think it's the look. Like I always say, boys, men lie. Women lie, numbers don't, to quote the great Jay-Z. And that kind of, what is it? 56,000 meters of climbing. That doesn't lie. This is going to be a dynamic Tour de France, literally from day 1 to day 20.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. Yeah.
All right. Outside of Vingegaard and Pogačar, who do you throw in as, your who can challenge them?
As for now, I think I agree with George. There's Evenepoel. We still have to see where he is with them, but there's no reason to think that he can't do it. He is at that level, if not better. But I think the only one that will be at the start normally is Bernal. He already won the Tour de France. He has the qualities of a Grand Tour rider, has a great team. This tour is in his favor. Not a lot of time trial for Vingegaard and Pogačar. It doesn't really matter. They're kind of equal in time trial. So whether there's a lot of time trials or not a lot, it doesn't really matter. For Bernal, it's a good thing that there's not a lot of time trial, and the time trial is hard. It's stage 16, so it's not really for specialists.
But there's a ton of mystery around whether or not he can ever recover from that crash. We know how bad it was.
That's what I was going to ask. With all these rumors floating around about Ineos throwing all kinds of crazy numbers at Remco, does that perhaps indicate that they might not have as much faith in Bernal? I mean, I'm Bernal's biggest fan.
Yes,
being a Colombian, I want to see him back at the top, but with his own team, perhaps trying to make a huge play for Remco. What is that?
There's no doubt that's as clear as day. The other, speaking of Ineos, I think one of the biggest mysteries, at least for me, going into this next year's tour, will be Richard Carapaz. Here you have a guy who is a former Grand Tour winner, who is leaving a team that is so Six Sigma. They look at every single thing, and he's arguably going to a minor league team in education first. I'm really curious.
Minor league, but
this is my answer, not yours. And I don't give a fuck what anybody thinks. You do, so let me finish. I'm just curious. And by the way, if he performs at the level that he has historically, I will eat my fucking hat. I promise you. And I will be happy for it. But I'm curious. I think it's
Lance. He can't. I think Carapaz is not.
Johan, I'm leaving it out there for it to play out. I agree. Look, spoiler alert. I agree with you, but I want to watch it. I want to see how this plays out. Leaving a team that is so advanced on every level and going to a different team. I'm curious. I want to see what happens.
I got him down for a stage win and podium. Seeing the douches. Mark my words. Look, these guys at this level, at the amount of money they're making, they're hiring their own trainers now. They got the system down.
Yes, George. Yes, but listen,
he could buy all the same stuff that they're providing.
We could talk about this for hours, and I've got Ali and Mari waiting. You guys are stepping on my girls.
Right? He wasn't George. Carapaz wasn't even able to beat Hindley, and nobody has spoken about Jay Hindley to be a top 5 candidate in the Tour de France.
Oh my God, Ali,
Mari, you know what? We'll go deep on that when we do the preview show, like a day or two before the tour starts, and we know who's lining up and who's healthy.
It's just like all the other stuff. When I was talking about Cav 3 or 4 years ago, you guys were like, he's done. Then he starts winning. Oh, I love him. Back on the bandwagon. So when Carapaz starts hammering this summer, y'all be back on the bandwagon train.
By the way, okay. Now I'm not even gonna say anything because I want to go talk about the Tour de France Femme avec Zwift. All right. Hey, thanks for tuning in, everybody. See y'all soon.
See you
guys.
Ciao.
Fuckers.